Thank you very much, Katrin. Now, since 1998, over 83,000 owls have been released in various parts of Gauteng to fight the problem of rat infestation. But in Alexandra township, these animals are now being killed and decapitated because the community is apparently afraid of them. It's been reported that in some cases the birds' eyes have been gouged out and their legs cut off with scissors. A case of animal cruelty has also been opened with the National Council of the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. We are joined this morning in studio by the Owl Rescue Centre's Director, Brendan Murray, who talks to us about this problem. Very good morning to you, Brendan. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Let's start with the latest. What's the reasoning given for the attacks or the reason why people are killing owls per se?
I just need to correct you on the 83,000. That if you check the media reports, it wasn't 83,000 owls. It was the education that a company is doing there. That it was 83,000 school kids have been educated about owls. The real amount of owls that have been released there, there's stories of between 16 and 300 owls. You're not quite sure. On a radio interview the other day, they said 16 owls. On their Facebook, they say 30 owls. Another one, they say 300 owls. So we're not exactly sure of how many owls have been released.
Yeah.
The Citizen broke that story on Monday. They contacted us about another story that we had posted there. And the complaint was, the issue was how many owls are actually being killed in Alexandra. Sorry, Ivan. And what we said is that we, on a regular basis, go to Alexandra plus other informal settlements. And what we do is we collect owls. We're not an organisation that specifically collects dead owls. We're out there to rescue live owls. And they broke the story about an owl that was decapitated.
Yeah.
That happened, it was actually a while ago. I checked in the photographs. It actually happened in March this year, an owl that was decapitated. It's not, I mean, I think a lot of people get, ooh, owl was decapitated. The guy was concerned, you know, there's cultural beliefs in Alexandra and other areas like that owls are linked to witchcraft and bring death. The guy saw the owl, he hit it with a piece of reinforcing, and unfortunately the head came off. We get owls where the guys hit them and legs or wings come off, you see. So it's not like the guy took the owl and physically, you know,
removed the head.
Removed the head, yeah. So, you know, we looked at it, and I looked on our records. We've collected in the last year and a half, we've collected about 7 owls, dead owls that were killed in Alexandra, specifically Alexandra. Our concern is with the project of where they release the owls in Alexandra and how those owls are kept. And we've heard now reports. We've actually got the Joburg Zoo is backing us as well. They did the education program with the school that actually participated in this project. And the teachers said that those owls that were released, they were actually, before they were released, the students actually killed them. In 16th of September last month, there was an owl that the kids, we're not sure how they cut the legs off, but the SPCA handled the case. Unfortunately, the SPCA denied, but the NSPCA actually confirmed us that the owl actually did go to the SPCA in Sandton, yeah.
Well, we asked the question, could this problem not have been prevented? Now, a few weeks ago, we asked the city's Director of Environmental Health exactly how they're planning on dealing with superstitious beliefs, and this is what they had to say back then.
I was in Alexandra myself a while ago, and I spoke to a community member who also told me about the owls in Alexandra helping to fight these rats. He also, however, told me that the people in the township are afraid of the owls and that there's some superstition behind it as well. How are you dealing with factors like that?
Yeah. Before we introduced owls, we went on an extensive, information campaign, educating people, working together with Siakona project as well as Eco Solutions. That's just to, address the issues of, superstitions and what people believe and don't believe as far as owls are concerned. So it wasn't just an abrupt introduction of owls, but the community dialogues, community meetings, and you still have today, people who still, believe that owls brings bad luck, and then owls are, a sign of bad omen. But our approach has been, working with both, the senior citizens in Alexandra as well as school children, and we are bearing fruit in terms of what we see in terms of schools, because when we teach these kids at a young age, we are able to reverse some of the beliefs that, the older members of society, still hold.
That was on the 3rd of October of earlier this month when we spoke to the city. That's their view. I wanted to ask you, How do you view the release of owls into these communities where they're not really welcomed?
You know, they're not welcome. If you go into Alexandra, there's no owls naturally breeding in Alexandra. Owls, if you go to an industrial area or farming area, you will find because it's specifically barn owls that we're talking about. If you go into those areas, you will find, like an industrial area where barn owls want to live, they'll live there. In Alexandra, there's not naturally where they want to. They're bringing barn owls in there because they've got a rat plague. Barn owls are not going to control a rat plague. Barn owls do eat rats, but they cannot control a rat plague. There's no natural nesting sites for them in Alexandra. Unfortunately, just the dynamics of how Alexandra works. The outlying areas, all the industrial areas, that's where that's where owls would naturally breed.
Yeah.
The owls that we've fetched in Alexandra, the dead ones, are coming from those industrial areas. These guys catch them because they're in a workshop or a warehouse, and they bring those owls back there because they think there's a money value to them. So they see maybe we can sell it to Muti or somebody will buy it. There's value attached to that owl. Yeah. But naturally, no owls breeding in Alexandra.
That brings us to the next question. African problems, African solutions for African problems. If communities are afraid of certain animals, sure, it's disingenuous then to put those animals in those areas, as is the case with owls now. They're going to be targeted, they're going to be killed.
Yes.
Should we not come up with other scenarios to deal with the rat infestation problem? And there have been successful programs in the past in Alexandra with rat boxes. People were paid to catch rats and that sort of thing. Is that not a way to deal with it, maybe?
You know, if you look, I've spoken to many experts on rats, and they say they've tried. I spoke to somebody out from the town council the other day, and they put 100 tons of poison inside them. And they say you can drive around for the next week and you're just going to see dead rats. But you take that area, now let's say an area like Alexandra can hold, for instance, 1 billion rats. If you kill 2 or 3 million rats, within a couple of weeks, the level is back to 1 billion. So you can keep pumping poison, you can do whatever, you can even catch rats. You're going to catch, but you're never going to catch all those rats. They're just going to multiply and back to a sustainable level, what Alexandra can hold. Those people need to be educated on, if there's no available food, rats cannot live there. So that's what they've got to do cleanups, and they've got to educate the people that what not to do to get rats there. Yeah.
So the best solution to deal with the rat infestation is to make sure there's no rubbish on the streets and make sure that the streets are clean and there's no food sources for them.
That's exactly what it is. Like I said, barn owls, you know, you're sacrificing an owl's life. Because what they do is they're punching it as an education program. And we can understand the benefit of education. We can understand that.
Yeah.
But you cannot risk an owl's life. You cannot send them to be slaughtered for the sake of education.
Do the communities believe that these owls are linked to witchcraft and that they even have to be killed in a certain way, or is that just taking it too far?
No, I think that's taking it too far. They just want, they don't want the owls. Not everybody, but a large portion of their population don't want owls there. Even the ones that have no issue with the owls. If they have an owl, I mean, not in Alexandra, but in other areas that we've dealt with, if an owl moves into somebody's house, they scared their family is going to associate them with witchcraft because they now have an owl. Why did the owl choose your house? And we get so many calls, people saying, please come remove these owls. I have nothing against the owls, but I'm scared what people are going to perceive me as.
I want to talk about the owls. You say that these owls there's no chance of them dealing with the thousands and thousands of rats that live in the sewers and so forth.
Yeah.
Where do these owls come from that have been placed in these townships?
What they do is they come from a rehab center. So a rehab center, that member of the public take an owl to a rehab center because most of them are juvenile owls. Nature of the owls is because where they come from, where they live, they fall out. They don't have proper nesting facilities. They fall out. People bring them to a rehab center. That rehab center then passes them to Eco Solutions. Eco Solutions sells them into an owl project. Not only Alex, individuals, companies can also buy owls from them. You buy the box and the owls come with it. Yeah. So that's where the owls are coming from.
Well, that's very interesting. You say, though, there are other methods. The best ones, you say, is to keep the neighborhoods clean.
Housekeeping is paramount, yes.
Well, thank you. Brendan, thank you for joining us today. Brendan Murray is the Owl Rescue Centre's director, and he gives us a unique insight into how owls will not deal with the rat problem we have in the city. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.